Hey, good afternoon or good morning or good whatever time zone you're in. Really excited to have our good friend Max here with us. Hey, Max.
How's it going, Tim?
Are we having IT Nation FOMO or what?
I have gotten some WhatsApp saying, "Where are you?" And it sounds like it's going well.
Yeah, there's a lot of like signal chats, WhatsApps, text chat, whatever going on, and I keep seeing great pictures and fun stuff. So, yeah, it looks like everybody's having a really good time. So, yeah, we're obviously not there. I was asked to come and present, but it didn't just work out. So, but yeah, so what events have you done? Are you doing any this year or what's going on?
Yeah, we've been a little bit more modest with the event game this year, but we've been doing like series of local lunch and learns, particularly in Philly, where I'm based, and the majority of our tech team, as well as in California, where our brokerage team and operations sits. So doing various, golf zone or lunch and learn events, more targeted stuff. And there's been a few also like Microsoft chapters that we've been doing some stuff with. So like Phillies games and other sponsored events, things like that.
That's fun. The smaller events I like. They're a little more intimate. The big ones are good. I mean, they're terribly expensive, but I feel like where you get 20 or 30 MSPs together, or even just smaller, 10 or 15, it's just it's way more personal. You can interact and have good conversations and way less money, but yeah, the smaller events I tend to like as well. We did a bunch over the last 2 years, and obviously planning out next year. But yeah, IT Nation's the last big one of the year. There might be one or two others between now and the end of the year, but we're looking forward to 2026 and Right of Boom and MSP Geek and a couple of the others that we're really looking forward to. So, but yeah, why don't I do this? Why don't I give you an opportunity to come up on, tell us a little bit about who, what, where, when, how, why, all the things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then, we'll get into, I'm sure, all the fun details, but yeah, I'm Max. I'm the Chief Data Officer and co-founder of DataStream Cyber Insurance. We are a insurtech company that has built an online brokerage platform. This is a platform that small to medium businesses can log into and get free quotes from dozens of carriers in 20 minutes or less by filling out a savable application online. We also have built this as like a multi-tenant system for MSPs and MSSPs to help manage all of their customers and clients' applications as well, so they can help them fill out the security components of those questionnaires. And this also provides some organic opportunities to help prompt people to get the security controls they might be missing in place to avoid not getting quotes from some of the great carriers out there, or to get better pricing, which I'm sure we'll talk about that a lot. But we've been around now since 2020, and have connections to about 1,000 partners in the space now. And really excited to be here and talk all things cybersecurity, compliance, and insurance.
That's awesome. And here at Compliance Scorecard, we try to play like Switzerland, but we are working towards an integration with DataStream. So you can do that stuff as an MSP once and be able to tie directly into DataStream if you're working with them. So pull stuff out of the risk and policy, all that fun stuff. So we're really excited to try to move that integration forward. We're pretty close. Won't have a timeline yet. I hate committing to. I have commitment issues. But yeah,
for next time we chat.
Yeah, we're very excited to work together in a strategic alliance with you all. And, that's kind of always been my mantra here at Compliance Scorecard is better together, right? MSPs, you have all the data, you have all the stuff, but it's so disjointed, right? So for being able to bring those things together so you're not repeating yourself here and there and all that fun stuff. But I suppose I should take a second and say hello to everybody listening. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Tim Golden, founder and CEO of Compliance Scorecard. where we help you, the MSP, facilitate that risk conversation with your customer so that you're viewed as that trusted advisor when it comes to facilitating the risk conversation. We're very excited to have our friend here, Max, and talking about, I don't know, cyber insurance. And yeah, the gravy that grows your MRR. Had to play a little bit on the Thanksgiving theme here. Oh my gosh, it's November already. What the heck happened?
It is. That is like a funny thing. I feel like I have a 3 and a 4-year-old right now, so it feels like we've had an entire month of Halloween because they barely left their costumes. But
yeah, love that.
Yeah.
I was a little bummed I didn't get to see my grandkids in their hall. I stayed home and handed out the candy, so I was the candy guy this year, but it was cute to see. This year we had so many more children and young adults and teenagers in our neighborhood than we've had in years past. So much so, I ran out of candy in the first hour.
That's amazing.
It's like three bags of candy gone, and I'm like, oh, crap. But it was really cute to see all the outfits, lots of dinosaurs and inflatable outfits and the T-Rexes. But yeah, Halloween was neat this year. It certainly had a lot more. But, Halloween ties right into our scary insurance conversation. Let's put the thankful Thanksgiving gravy on that, right? So, Max, I know in the beginning, we kind of had a little green room, talked a little bit about the questionnaires and trying to where's your head at? What are you seeing from a whole 10,000-foot view in the insurance space right now before we dive deep?
Yeah, it's great. And to give the huge bird's eye view of where things are going and to also just talk a little bit about this, it's probably, again, not a shock to most of the people on this call, but for those that don't actually know a ton about cyber insurance, this is a relatively new insurance product. It's made to cover companies and organizations that get hit with some kind of cyber attack, whether that be a breach, a ransomware, accidentally wired money to somewhere you shouldn't have. These are all different perils that would be covered by a cyber insurance product, just like your house should be covered from fire and your car should have a policy if you get into an accident. This space has evolved a lot, and where we're at to now, it's getting more and more tech savvy. You might not be surprised to learn that insurance is not exactly the first adopter of all new technology.
Really? Says who?
I know it's a shock. It's a shock, but even today we have quite a lot of local brokers who, if you were going to get insurance through them, you're going to have to fill out several fairly long PDFs. Maybe you can at least do a digital PDF on your computer for it. But what some of these carriers have realized is that there are market opportunities, especially for smaller risks, where they are comfortable automating pricing and have set up APIs. So if you send if you have the proper data on the company's firmographics and security controls, we can take that data, send it directly to carriers, and get almost instant pricing back against $1 million, $2 million, $3 million limit quotes. So yeah.
That's fascinating. I do have lots of friends in the space when it comes to cyber insurance, and I get mixed reviews on what is and isn't available. APIs, instant quotes, all that fun stuff. The big thing I hear all the time is actuary tables. Well, they've only got 4 or 5, maybe even 10 years of data. It's not like home and house and fire and car where they have decades of data and whatnot. And it really comes down to what data is available to determine the risk level that they're insuring, right? And so cyber insurance, it's a fairly young product, right?
Yeah, 100%. As I mentioned, this product's really only been around since the mid to late 90s was the very, very baby cyber insurance products. The coverage didn't really cover all the perils. There really wasn't any data to form coherent pricing about the actual risks at the beginning, which is not surprising. But and we're still early days. We've got, yes, like you said, 5 to 10 years of quality data at scales, which are interesting. But this is why we've seen a lot of fits and starts in the space. Like probably a lot of people, if they'd looked into this at all, they might have been looking into it during some of the very volatile times during the pandemic, where it turns out that cyber insurance carriers were selling too much risk at too low a price to cover this new type of ransomware peril that really lit up as things were going more digital when the world was shutting down. They had some very lossy years. So what was the market response? Well, the market response was to add a lot more security questions so that the insurers felt more comfortable with what was a good option, what wasn't, and they increased prices a lot too. So the market's really seen fits and starts. But I think that especially the last few years, it's been much more stable. Like we, again, integrate to 40 different carriers through our platform. And we have to constantly stay on top of changing questions. Like if they, again, are updating, based on losses that are coming in, the types of things they want to collect data on, we have to update our, front end to make sure it reflects that. But we've seen really modest changes in the last 2 or 3 years, which I think can paint this picture that have we solved cyber risk? No, but have we a mix of understanding within an acceptable loss tolerance, like what is a good security posture and what is clearly not? I think that they're getting closer and closer to at least that kind of an awareness. So we have not had to massively change our business. And at a super high level, because there's been a couple good years, we're probably heading into a softening of the market, which for those that would want to look into getting this kind of a product, that means that prices are very likely going to come down a bit. And that is, a good time to buy. So again, super broad strokes.
Awesome. Hey, Colin, thanks for joining. Feel free to drop any questions you have in the chat as we continue on here. Again, it's all about understanding risk, right? And, that's our motto. I said in the beginning, like having that risk conversation, right? You're doing an assessment, figuring out where they are, and then, being able to work with the insurance carriers to quantify or qualify, both the big words, that risk when it comes to cyber insurance, right? And, years ago, when I was working with, medical professional as part of an MSP, they always would just say, "Oh, insurance will cover." I don't care about that. I get insurance for that. And that ain't happening so much anymore with, "Oh, they'll just cover it." Well, you know what? Your malpractice insurance won't cover this. Your general business insurance won't cover this. And now I'm hearing, at least from some of my other friends, like even getting insurance is difficult if you don't have some of the basic things in place. And I think we're going to talk real briefly about that. Let me just say hi to, hey, Jerry, thanks for joining. Good to see you. Feel free to drop some questions in the chat. Max, I just kind of pose this question to you. What are some of the basic things we as MSPs should be doing? Yes, we know two-factor. It's almost 2026. We're still talking about that.
Yes.
Backups. We know about backups. We know about security awareness training, vulnerability, doing an assessment, having policies like an IRP or disaster recovery, or even a friggin' who to call checklist. Right? What are some of the other things, Max, that you're starting to see the industry start to ask for? We know the 5 or 6 basic stuff. We're all pretty schooled on that. But how is it pivoting a little bit with now you need an X, or you're going to get denied if you don't have a Y or a Z?
No, it's a lot of great stuff in there. I think that the table stakes have, like I mentioned, moved before historically. Like really, MFA went from a nice to have to a you have to have this, or you're probably not going to get policies after 2020-ish. Where we're at right now, you named a bunch of these like core controls, and I don't think they're more than like a dozen or so. If I'm putting my data hat on, which I should have grabbed my hat like you. It's a very nice hat. But if I'm putting my hat on and talking about what we do on the data side, we sit now on tens of thousands of historical quotes connected to policies that have gone through our platform, and so we can build machine learning models that basically say, hey, what are the features that actually move pricing? If you were like sort of saying, I want to guess the lowest $1 million quote for this type of a company, here are the different security controls, like which ones are the most independent and impact the pricing the most. So you already like named a bunch of ones which are good table stakes. Like in addition to backing things up, encryption at rest is another big one, and backups being encrypted. And you mentioned some of these plans. One of the big things is like you said, but like actually testing the backup recovery time. Like that's one of the key questions.
Nah, who does that? Nobody does that. I have a document, but I haven't looked at it in like 10 years. It's sitting over there in some shelfware, but it's fine. I wrote one. I grabbed the template and copy pasted my name. So I have one. I just haven't looked at it. Why would I look at it? That's work.
Yeah, I think that the insurers have gotten a little smarter again in the types of questions they ask, where they've moved from do you do this to like can you prove it, almost a little bit, which is good. It's like, you know, did you clean your room? Like, yeah, of course. Like, can I go and see it? And it's like, well, maybe not. Like, so I think some of the questions have moved more to like, can you actually recover in 10 days? And then if it turns out you can't and you have a loss connected to that, those are the kinds of things which, you know, are a little bit of a liability. So anyway, coming around to the original question, where is the market moving? I would be very skeptical to see massive new security requirements in place again, because we have had several good years in the cyberspace. And if anything, there's a softening market. I think in some previous market softenings, they actually tried to remove questions to make the process easier. And I'm skeptical that that's going to happen, because I think these people want to maybe keep the level of data collection of what they're at. But in addition to the table stakes of MFA, basic firewalls, some kind of antivirus, backups, probably encrypting the backups, encrypting data at rest, actually having your incident response plans, your backup and recovery plans tested, and saying that you're comfortable saying I could come back within 10 days or less. And not just the vulnerabilities, but the time to response as well. Like these are typical things. So, and a couple of these things, it really is still, you know, it's simple, but like this can influence, you know, several $100s, just a single one of these questions, depending on the criticality of it and the size of your business. This can be the difference between a couple extra $100 for your premium or not. So
I love the fact, and Jerry, no, I'm not going to define the word cyber. Maybe I will. I don't know, but that might be a whole nother week-long webinar. And it's funny, Jerry, that you put that in there, because this is the question that when I do go to a conference, I ask cybersecurity professionals, hey, can you define what cybersecurity is? And the answers I get are vastly different, and it's amazing, but I'm not answering that here today, because we're talking about gravy and cyber insurance, right? And yes, Jerry, data does have value. In fact, there's a bunch of calculators out there. I'm going to ask you, what do you think is the most expensive record? Is it an email? Is it a social security number? Is it a birthday? Is it a medical record? Is it a credit card? What do you think is the most expensive record from an incident or that you might have stored? Max, do you know what that is?
It's a cool question. And also, the only thing I know, so we could talk about the definition for cyber too. I do know that's a Greek word originally, and it comes from, anyway, I'm not going to, but yeah, so we said we'd steer away from it. But I like the question. Yeah, in terms of the expensiveness of records, there's some really good research papers on looking at PCI, PII, and PHI. And at least in the studies I've seen, you know, health breaches are the most expensive, essentially. So that ranks number one.
Yeah, and I just did a LinkedIn post about this, and I actually, in our peer group last week, talked about this pretty agnosium a lot.
Yes. Comprehensive.
Medical records are by far the most valuable data, right? Mm-hmm. So I would imagine, Max, when you're talking to an MSP that focuses all on medical customers versus the donut shop. I always love the donut shop, by the way. The donut shop versus the medical shop, they're going to have a much higher premium. They're going to have more things, more potential risk, because the data is more valuable in a sense.
Yeah, that's totally true. And I think this is one of the sometimes challenging parts of MSPs having these conversations with clients, where it is still the case that right now, well, I guess maybe I'll pose a question to you right back at you, Tim. But if you had to t-shirt size a cyber insurance premium for a company and you only were doing it off of two things you knew about that company, what might those two things be?
What data do they have and how exposed is it?
Those are great. And those do, I would say that how much data they have is very typically a feature that is correlated with the size of the company and also the industry that the company's in. Those and end up oftentimes.
I don't know. I might challenge that.
Yeah.
I'm going to play a little devil's advocate here. You know, working with an MSP just the other day, one of our partners. You know, one of the things we do is kind of help them identify what business, what frameworks, what risk, what business outcomes they should be talking about. And he was telling me about a CPA firm. And I'm like, okay, so tell me more. And he's like, well, they're like 3 or 4 people. I'm like, okay. And he's like, they're very small. They're only like 3 or 4 people. And we have some tools, not our tools, but there are tools to discover data. And I ran a bunch of these tools and it came back with like thousands and thousands and thousands of financial records sitting in spreadsheets in their SharePoint and their OneDrive and their desktop. And I was like, so they might be small because they're only 3 people, but they had well over, I'll just say 20 or 30,000 records of data and financial data. And I'm like, size doesn't matter when it comes to the number of staff in a business.
Yeah.
It can. There's other factors, but
yeah, it's a good point. And I should specify that again. I think you're 100% right. Like more data makes you more vulnerable. And but I guess that the way I would maybe reframe this slightly is that if you're a CPA company like that, right, and you're actually doing your job, you might, by the nature of your business, have to sit on massive amounts of sensitive data. Just like a hospital network doesn't get to choose to sit on a bunch of PHI. If you're a hospital network, this is part of your bread and butter. And I think coming back, I guess, to the original thing, some of the aspects of how insurance looks at you as a risk or one of your clients is agnostic to you being secure or not. Because if you're a CPA, you might have to sit on a lot of personal information. If you're a hospital, you might have to sit on a lot of medical data. And again, bigger companies tend to be bigger risks just because the attack surface is larger. And there's lots of historical loss and claims data that says you're more likely to have a claim if you're bigger because you're a bigger target with more assets, et cetera. So I think we try to make companies aware of you're always going to have a baseline risk. And at some point, you're not going to be able to get away from that kind of pricing element. But imagine that baseline risk can be 30% cheaper or double as expensive because of the actual security posture you have on top of that. Like that same CPA with really good security controls could see a really nice premium, but could see a pretty disastrous one without it because, again, of how they're controlling that risk.
We talk a lot about risk matrices, likelihood, impact, those kinds of things. I always lean into this analogy. Great. You have a Windows XP machine. It has millions of records and it is plugged directly into the internet. No firewall, no nothing. It's just out there on Comcast or Xfinity or whatever, and millions of records. You have nothing and it's Windows XP. Definitely going to have a high impact because it has a lot of records and little to no security, whatever. Windows XP, call it DOS, call it whatever the hell you want. High likelihood, high impact, blah, 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 right? However, you take that same Windows XP machine, you remove the keyboard, the monitor, you take down the mouse, no network card, no USB, no way to plug into it. It's just a machine running with a hard drive, no input, no output devices. And then you lock that inside Fort Knox and you arm it around with tanks. Yeah, there's data, but ain't nobody getting to it. Unless they physically can get into the building and not get blown up or shot by the tanks. and break through the vaults and steal the hard drive. So while that's the concept when I'm discussing this with MSPs and I'm talking to them about with and for their customers, like it's all about understanding what's important to them. Mm-hmm. It's all about determining, how important is that donut? Mm-hmm. And is that donut sitting in the middle of Central Park with a bunch of pigeons? Or is it locked inside Fort Knox, right? And so talking about those business outcomes and talking about that stuff, helping them see the risk and then insuring against that risk appropriately, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe I should have used some turkey and gravy analogy since that's what we were talking about here. But yeah, data is very important. You said something a minute ago. Actuary tables, we're talking about data, and you said the word machine learning. So where is AI starting? Machine learning, generative AI, RAG, all the things, agents, blah, blah. Where is that? I'll bucket the word AI fitting into this cyber insurance world now.
Yeah, it's a great question. So, and I'm biased because I've been in the startup space for 10 years now, and I've been doing, machine learning before it was cool, or before everyone realized it was cool, I guess, for the last 10 years. And cyber insurers behind the scenes, they've been using various kinds of machine learning techniques and modeling capabilities for a long time. Like at the DataStream level, we use it for, essentially expedited quote estimates. So with a few pieces of data, we might be able to give you a pretty good confidence interval of how much you'd expect to pay for $1 million or $3 million on your policy. And at the reinsurance level, our parent company is a reinsurance company that's built a very complex machine learning pipeline to simulate systemic global cyber losses that have never happened yet, which is again, very sophisticated. So I would say broadly, insurance folks have used a lot of math, machine learning, statistical techniques for a lot behind the scenes. But I think now machine learning's become in the public zeitgeist with all of the, LLM type models, all of the applications connected to those things. But like many things, I think that they do also present new risks, which are inherently cyber. Like LLMs have brought, unfortunately, the cost of bullshit almost down to zero. So if you are a hacker that wants to do even more at scale attacks, and especially to SMBs, that it frankly wouldn't have been worth your time before. I think this is the scary part, not to ramble on here, but I think that the risk that new AI presents to especially the MSP and the SMB space is that whatever notion that obscurity was security is got to be completely fractured at this point, because that was only true when the cost really was too much to spend human time to do it. That's gone. You have to be better than you were before.
I just had this is how my brain works. Oh my God, new domain, AI hacking as a service.com. Probably already exists, but that's just it, right? The risk posed here is, we used to have to handwrite scripts and code and things and language and email, all that stuff. And now with all these large language things, they can automate a lot of that stuff and reduce the time. And the time that they're not writing code is now the time they're going after bigger, broader, more smaller businesses. We hear that all the time. Oh, I'm too small, the things, whatever. But, I want to kind of get back into, I don't want to dive too deep into the AI component, but it is interesting on how cyber insurance can start to consider using beyond just the machine reading and the math stuff, determining risk through artificial intelligence, lack of better things, right? So let me ask you, right? Because we're going to last 30 minutes here or so. We want to talk about how this can grow MRR for the MSPs. Okay. So we kind of set some foundational things, backups, two-factor, policy, procedure, vulnerability. We all know the things. Security awareness training. It's funny. My good friend Will, Will Brooks, he and I were chatting and bantering because he's always good to banter with. I came up with a new acronym. I called it CLIF.
Oh, I like it.
Cyber Liability Insurance Framework.
I like that. Yeah.
Cyber Liability Insurance Framework. Because everybody's like, what framework? Well, as an MSP, you start to standardize around things that cyber isn't asking for. You can literally build a framework and double your MRR. So, Max, talk a little bit about your thoughts around, how you have seen MSPs be successful in growing MRR using the cyber insurance.
Yeah, and I might steal that Cliff thing. I like that. But yes, I've been talking about this for a while, but I think that cyber insurance, like, again, what we collect is a bunch of questions, and we try to remove overlapping ones to make it shorter, basically. But our general application is like a combination of a bunch of different carriers' questions they need answering. And that is, in a sense, like a de facto framework. Like, I would say cyber insurance, they're coming up with their own risk framework. It's just, instead of being driven more from the security space, and I think thinking more about the technical ways that hackers would go through the kill chain, for instance, or what have you, insurers are looking more from the economic loss side of it. Like, based on these data points, we actually get a differentiated value collecting this type of data, because it tells us something that it didn't before, asking a different question. So I think that insurance is forming its own de facto cyber framework for what it thinks a secure versus an insecure risk is, based off of which types of risks end up being higher losses. And I think that's a powerful way of looking at what makes a good security risk. And what we've seen with our own partners going through our system, we've made an automated step at the end of our process. So basically, any referral that comes to us connected to an MSP, at the very last stage, before they go to get quotes, we sort of run a quick security audit, and we show them, again, for some of these key control groups, if they're missing anything like MFA or backups, they can click a single button and automatically start an email with their MSP that's on the application to fix that. We had one good manufacturing company come through before. They were able to add on like some missing security solutions from that page, got the MSP a couple extra $1,000 per year in revenue, but it brought down the premium by like $3,000 or something for the company themselves. So it's kind of a win-win. A little, when I was posting about this earlier, I think this is a little bit of like a two birds, one stone opportunity, where everyone just makes out a little bit using insurance as a selling tool. Like, the ultimate goal is that the customer gets better security, less likely to have a bad thing happen. And they get because of that, they just get a better policy. And the MSP also gets to earn more money because now the company has better security. So we've just seen this many times, that companies that go through the process end up seeing that insurance is a tool that can drive customers towards the security posture they should have anyway. That adds them revenue, but also helps lower premiums for those clients. So in a sense, it's like the better security choice, that premium reduction paid for some of the money that's now going into their additional services. So that's really how I see the kind of master equation here for MSPs really utilizing insurance to sell more in a way that's totally aligned with helping the customer.
Gears are spinning.
I'd love to hear how you, in the same sense too, like, think about, all of your own perspective, like with working with different, the insurance ecosystem in like all things security frameworks, like where you see the synergy.
Yeah. So obviously, we'd love to be able to work with MSPs to do some assessment stuff, the policy components. And I don't mean cyber policy. I mean SOPs and policy documentation, right? That's a stupid pet peeve I have. Everybody uses the word policy to mean 20 different things. Bugs me. Microsoft calls it a conditional access policy. No, that's a configuration. Anyways, I digress. So, when it comes to working with our MSPs and helping them build a compliance as a service offering, yeah, we lean right into cyber liability insurance because you know what? Chances are you're probably already got the tools in the stack. You've already got the knowledge on how to do it. Now it's just a matter of packaging it and pricing it appropriately. And you don't have to price it at $1 billion that they won't afford, and helping them sell it as a service, right? So things like we've already talked about: backup, training, vulnerability, IRP, DRPs, policies, procedures, doing an assessment, building out Cliff, your cyber liability insurance framework, and using that as a baseline. We really help them kind of level set a baseline. MSPs love, we're going to do CIS. That's great. It's an awesome framework. And, 153 safeguards across multiple different implementation. It's hard. Cliff, on the other hand, I'm going to keep referencing that. I totally forgot about that. It's like 10 or 12 things, and you're probably doing most of them already.
Yes.
And so when I think about back to your question, what is the Department of Defense, or I can't speak to that directly right now, but I can speak to my history of working 20 years in the federal space and dealing with as an MSP, as a technology provider. I remember one of our first contracts requiring cyber liability insurance. Now, the interesting part was that we were only collecting email address, first name, last name, email, no other PII. And this was before, email was really considered sensitive PII like it is now, SPII. And I kept pushing back, no, you show me where the reg says email address is blah, 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 blah. And so I pushed back, but even still, they wanted us to have $10 million of a cyber liability insurance. No rider, no whatever. It had to be specific cyber liability insurance, and it had to be for $10 million. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this is a $2 million contract, number one. Number two, you couldn't even buy a $10 million. We had to go to 3 different carriers.
Yeah.
To put them all together to get it. I mean, we had already won the government contract, so it was already a requirement, which kind of sucked, but I didn't know that, and I wasn't part of the process. Anyways, I was handed that, hey, go do all this stuff, which is what happens to us IT people. They sign a contract, they get a thing, 3rd, 4th, 5th party, whatever, and then they hand it to us and be like, oh, by the way, we need to adhere to all of this stuff that we just signed the contract on last month, and yeah, it happens. But compliance scorecard, we do have our own cyber liability insurance policy, protecting what we're doing and all the fun stuff. Last conversation we had with our friend Jason Rory, we talked about sublimits. That's a whole new thing in the last couple of years, and we talked a little bit about what the hell is sublimits and why do I care? But from a government perspective, my own personal opinion of what I saw back up at least 3+ years ago, we were getting contracts that required it. Mm-hmm. You want this $10 million contract, you need to have an X million dollars in protection, and these are the things that it needs to cover, which now most likely includes the sublimits and the components of sublimits.
Yeah, and I think that gels with what we have seen as well. Like there are different reasons people get cyber insurance. Some people legitimately, I think, are security savvy. They see this as a really good financial risk mitigation tool. Others are doing it because they need it from supply chain contracts, essentially. That's been a huge driver for people going into space. I think this is also where, and we've talked a little bit about this before as well, but I think this is where, in a sense, MSPs and MSSPs can really, I think, just elevate sort of their game and how they work with their clients by strategic, I think, foresight. Because at some point, I think, like, it would be very surprising to me if, in a world that is constantly getting more digitized and more connected, if you don't see what you saw in government continue to propagate. And we see this again all the time. It's not the point yet where like you are legally required to have cyber insurance to get on the road, so to speak, as a small business. But I think that MSPs can be like that thought leader and like really trusted advisor with their SMBs by like making them realize, I'm not trying to like, I'm trying to get you to take these, security tools that I'm trying to implement seriously, this framework, this like insurance thing, because like I'm trying to look for you like 5 or 10 years ahead and like make sure you're like well positioned, not just for like this quarter and like the numbers you're trying to hit. And I'm not trying to just like squeeze every last, I'm not trying to, get one over on you. I'm really trying to like prepare you for the future, I think. So like I think making sure like even going through the process, even if you don't end up getting insurance, like it's a great tool for highlighting where there are gaps. And I think that can be a really useful tool to better understand the risk, especially seeing it from the insurance perspective.
Yeah. So if I'm thinking about building out an offering and I want to, add some gravy to my stack, right? And I don't want to be the turkey left holding the stuffing, right? And so, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up with that baseline standardization of the 8 or 10 things.
Yes.
And rattle that off again, doing an assessment, policy procedure, vulnerability scanning, backup, multi-factor, next gen firewall, right? You hear these things all the time. I'm going to come up with, here's my standard. These 10 things. Doesn't have to be hard, these 10 things. And then I'm going to present it to my customer. And the business case I'm going to offer them is first, handle the objection of I'm too small. And there's some good ways to do that, right? It's the actually you are so small that you're the prime target because you don't have these things in place. Unlike bigmedicalcenter.com or like bigindustry.com, they have teams. You have us, and you're not using us. So handle the objection right up front. Right. I'm not a sales expert, but handle that objection right up front and really talk to them about their business outcomes and tailor it that way. Offering them like, listen, it's these 8 or 10 things, and it can help you down the road with getting better rates potentially on cyber insurance. I have to be careful because I'm not a cyber insurance expert in the words that I use. Oh, do this and save money on your car insurance.
Yes. I think I totally agree, and I think if we were to go back in time and come up with an alternative name for this webinar, I would probably say like don't fall off a cliff. Like basically, you want to make sure that those clients are knocking out what that industry has identified as really pivotal for actually getting good pricing, which means like from the people that are betting on you as an economic risk, this is what they think security looks like. That's a great lens for, for having that conversation, getting ahead of it, looking like that strategic trusted advisor, and potentially, adding a little gravy yourself like that. That's a great tool for adding on additional services and meeting those, again, table stakes in the world that we're in right now. I think some nice parts of that too are that, we alluded to this earlier, where we see the world going as well is, again, more and more automation of some of this, and products like yours. We love what we're doing, and what we have done several times is we're trying to integrate security and compliance companies so that we're really trying to map to the controls. Ultimately, you might have a different product here or a different product there that both satisfy the same thing. We want to be able to ultimately get the actual data and map it on there directly, because it's faster, it's more accurate, and like, again, some of this is agnostic. Like it's like we need to know that this security thing is ticked, but it doesn't need to, that's I think where the space is going. If we know certain products are in place, if we can see this number of seats has MFA turned on and blah, 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 then you get an application which is like much more ironclad as well. Like this is data you can really trust because it's coming right from the stuff that's actually being managed. So if something bad does happen, you just look like you're bringing a gun to a night fight when you like say like, look, here's all the stuff. Here's the actual data I turned in at the beginning. And here's, how everything still looks, which is great. That's a really strong, where I think, again, things should be going to not fall effective.
I'm smirking here because this is literally why compliance scorecard exists. I don't like to generally, plug or talk about it, but during these sessions, because I want them to be more educational focused. But I'll digress for a split second. MSPs have access to all the data, period. You have M365, you have SOC, SIM, SOAR, shirt, pant, leg, whatever. You have access to all this data. And the challenge is all of it's disjointed. A great example is maybe your PSA calls it a device. Maybe your vulnerability scanner calls it hardware. Maybe your EDR calls it a laptop. Right? We're all talking about the same thing. It's a darn phone or a darn laptop, but how the nomenclature across all the different tools, they don't match. You can't even get a single unique identifier across all these tools. And so, what we have started and my big foundational component is building that data lake. Here's all the MSP tools. It's all disjointed. It's all structured weird. The naming convention's all weird. The API access and the key, all the things are just that. We've started, and that was my foundational core. Take all this stuff you have, pull it into a data lake, structure it, and then on the insurance side, on the compliance side, on the risk side, on the output or the input side, structure it so that we can start proving shit along the way in a standardized, structured manner. And then, oh my God, what just happened to our industry in the last 12 months-ish? MCP, right? Model Context Protocol, right? AI. That is the USB. We have been handwriting this crap for 2 years, and now insert MCP, done. So what that really can do, especially in the insurance industry, is now give you real-time defensible data. Whether we build it, you build it, doesn't matter. It gives you real-time defensible data on the risk posture of that end customer.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think there were some great points brought up earlier, again, asking kind of about the value of data, which again, this goes in different ways, right? Because again, there's the value of data from a risk perspective, like the data you're holding, but also what can you do with the data that you do have? And I think like what you said, one really value of that data is if you're able to have that sophisticated data lake that actually does a lot of the translation from various sources into a single point of truth taxonomy that is, that is then something where you could have high confidence in a customer's security controls, either from a compliance framework or again, just look at a cyber insurance questionnaire, yet another framework that you're mapping that data to. That's very powerful because that really gives, when we, in the insurance world, the number one thing that people have issues with typically on the fearfulness side is oh, this policy might not pay out. I've heard these scary stories of somebody having an incident that doesn't get paid. That happens very rarely, and these products are super regulated. But without going down that rabbit hole, the number one reason when that does happen, that a claim is denied, is that someone said they had MFA or EDR or whatever. And then when they actually look at the data, it's you absolutely don't. So the value of having that the value of having that really sophisticated data lake and being able to, for instance, take high level aggregated counts of, again, these are the number of endpoints, and here's the number of them that are covered. Here's the number of user accounts that are active, and here's the number of that turned on MFA for email, things like that. That is a much higher level of confidence in your solidity of your application then when and if something bad happens. So I think that's, again, the value of having data put into action just for one use case. There's obviously very many, but yeah, I'd love to, I guess, like, connected to that. I know we've talked a little about this integration that we've been building between our two companies, but I'd love to hear any other thoughts you'd have kind of about the automation and, I guess, yeah, what can we do in this space with technology and data in general in the automated world?
Did you just ask me the automation question? So I have very strong opinions about what can or cannot be and what should and should not be automated. So first and foremost, the word automation gets tossed out in the industry a lot, right? It gets, and granted, there are things you can rightfully automate. There's whole platforms that do this. RPA, right? There's Roost, EmiBot. There's all kinds of these platforms for robotic process automation and it's possible. From a compliance and a risk perspective, there are things you can get. For example, Max, you mentioned MFA. Great, no problem. First, let's just start with M365. Most MSPs are out selling M365. They're using that as their standardization for account management, IAM, for dealing with accounts, okay? Email, whatever. So, number one, are you selling the right license that has the API available? Because if you're selling business standard versus E5, that will be vastly different on what's available. Number two, we can certainly, depending on what license is sold, get access to that API and then peek into is things enabled and disabled. But that's about it. We don't automatically approve the SOP to create those accounts. We don't automatically approve the policy that says this is how passwords and MFA and things are enforced. We don't have, you can never remove that human element, right? So I did a bunch of research. CIS, everybody loves CIS, and I do too, right? Huge fan of CIS. IG 1.1, Enterprise Asset Management. Tell me, what's the source of truth? Is it M365? Is it your RMM? Is it your PSA? Is it your backup? Is it a combination of every single possible tool so that you're getting every single possible device across the entire network? How do we prove 1.1 and automate that? I don't know. I have to have 17,000 connectors to 25 different things to figure out where is, I will tell you right now, not every one of my phones is in my RMM or my MDM or my vulnerability. And I have 4 of them. I use 3 as my daily driver. The 4th is an extra, but whatever. The point is, when you're looking at automated, dig deep and ask the question. Now, there are great abilities and things we can do, and working together with Max here at DataStream, we're going to pull stuff in from the connectors we have. We're going to put that together and we're going to push it over to DataStream. And we're going to prove things where we can and build the defensibility where possible. So I can go on and on about automations. There are things we can appropriately.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I think especially in the age we're in right now, I think that there's this general sense, I think, with a lot of the new cool technology that's out there, that it can almost be a little bit too human agnostic. And what I hope that, integrations like the one we're building and what MSPs can partially take away is there really are some new capabilities that can be unlocked by, adding more technology into the flow, adding more sophistication and automation around some of those data, using some of that data that used to be siloed, bringing it together in a more unified way. But you need humans in the loop, especially ones that know security and IT to be, I mean, we talk about this all the time, but like, think of it like you go from being like an MSP or an MSSP to like an augmented version of yourself with better data and automation technologies. They're going to have mistakes in them. You need to be the one that actually know, like, we've seen this like a zillion different times, and you were just saying it, like, nobody knows technology system is ever going to be able to validate that it 100% is seeing ground truth, because everything is so aggregated, which means you're going to be missing a bunch of stuff in your network. This is the same kind of problem you run into with like external scanning tools and things like that. Doesn't mean that they're not useful, but we need really good technologists in the loop to help make sure that they are validating and sanity checking all of that stuff through the process.
Well, great example, Hamilton up in Canada, right? $18 million, cyber insurance, breach, the whole 9 yards, right? And when they answered the questionnaire, they said, yeah, we have MFA. Come to find out, they had MFA on only some of the accounts. All of the accounts. And it was one of those accounts they didn't have MFA on that they were able to get into and then move through the systems. Like, can I peek into M365 with an API and say, yeah, 10 out of 20 accounts have it enabled, but it's not enforced? You still have 10 accounts that don't have it at all. Great. We can see that data. Who's making decisions around the ones that don't have it, or who's enforcing it? Do you have a policy and SOP that says we are enforcing it on every account, and not just in M365, but globally, where we physically where we're able to? But that's the thing. Like, we can look in and see that data, but who's the human in the middle? Not to be confused with man in the middle attack, but who's the human? So in the last couple minutes here, Max, I'm going to pull you up here full screen. I like our audience to be able to have one key takeaway from today. So I know I'm kind of putting you, Johnny, on the spot here. What is your one key takeaway for them?
Yeah, like, again, I'll just come back to the key point and sort of the point of this chat in some sense. Like, cyber insurance is a really great way for driving customers to adopt better security that actually can also save them money and make you more money. Full stop. Use insurance like the bad guy to have hard conversations, because instead of maybe there being a push and pull for like, well, why do I have to do this? Like, this is an objective third-party system, which is continuing to gain traction, and particularly in a world where cyber attacks are going to be coming more than ever after smaller targets, because again, that's easier with some of, unfortunately, the new technology that's been built. This is a really natural way to have that conversation and make it feel totally third party and unbiased, because in a sense it is. You're trying to make sure you're just using this framework, this cliff, to talk about what clump of security controls really make them walking in the safe bucket versus the vulnerable bucket. And again, it can guide conversations that really help everybody out, get them insured, save them money on it, and make you more monthly reoccurring revenue, maybe all at the same time.
Love that. So with just 1 minute left here, I'll try to be as concise as possible. If you're an MSP and you're not having the business conversations about cyber risk and cyber insurance and driving business outcomes, which could lead to lower insurance rates or at least better programs that are available, you need to be having those conversations. It isn't very difficult. There are probably 8 or 10 things that both Max at DataStream or ourselves here at Compliance Scorecard can help you put together a package to be able to then present to your customer the business outcomes around cyber risk. Cyber liability insurance ain't going to save your ass. It might help. It might reduce the risk. It might provide some coverage. But at the end of the day, these basic cyber hygiene things are just one step forward to helping protect customers, protect their business, protect their livelihood, but also tying it back to the business outcomes and the things that help your customer get out of bed in the morning and do the thing that they do. So thank you so much for having us here. For those of you that have any more questions, just dump them in chat. We'll be following that along the way. Max, I appreciate you coming on as always. Let me end with, what is your most favorite food for Thanksgiving?
Yeah, I'm glad we saved this for last, just in case I get anyone that hates this answer. But I'm not a turkey guy, so I've been making a prime rib the last 8 years. So every year, go to a butcher in South Philly, get a big prime rib, and I think I've got it down pat. It's my
so we have family in Philly, so I have a place to stay. What time should I show up? It's funny that you say that.
I'll let you know.
Prime rib is what I make for Christmas. It is my gift to the family. I won't get into all the gory details, but I think it's pretty darn good. Bone in, cut off, 6 to 7 hours to cook prime rib for Christmas. Now, Thanksgiving, on the other hand, you just give me a pecan pie and a fork.
There you go.
I don't even need anything else. I don't need anything else. Although maybe the skin off the turkey. I know it sounds gross, but like a bucket full of like turkey skin and the prime, like the crispy, buttery, yummy, and the pecan pie, and I'm golden. Oh, wait, I was born golden. All right, Max. Well, thank you so much. Any last parting words before I kick us all out?
No, this is great. Thank you for having me on, and hopefully people got something out of this. And yeah, pleasure as always, Tim. This is fun.
Awesome. Well, do the like, the subscribe, the thingies, the shares, whatever. Thank you very much. We'll be back in 2 weeks, I think, maybe. Happy Thanksgiving if I don't hear from everybody. Thank you.
Cheers.
Subscribe now.
That was fun.
Yeah, that was fun.